G'day, Bomber fans. Well, cancel your September holidays. The Bombers are winning the flag. Now, look, obviously yesterday, the Bombers defeated Richmond quite convincingly in the first unofficial hit-out of the 2026 season. We got to remember, this is a practice game. It's in fact a glorified training drill. Like, this is an Essendon team going up against a bottom four Richmond side, missing all of its experience, really, and neither side is trying to win this game. These matches, you don't look at the results, you don't look at the performances, really. What you're looking for are signs and glimpses, and I think we got quite a few reasons and signs to be optimistic, not just about 2026, but the future. There was a lot to like out of this game from the performance that we saw from Essendon, but there was also quite a lot to dislike as well. These practice games are really, really hard to judge, I guess, because there's nothing linear about them. You know, you don't have four-quarter performances, you have magnets flicking around, there'll be 18-year-olds rested on all Australian players at times. There's nothing concise and concrete about these games. They're not really AFL matches, so for that reason, I'm not going to be treating it as one. I'm not going to be going through a usual run-of-the-mill review. Instead, what I'm going to be doing is listing off what I liked and didn't like about this game, because there are plenty of reasons for both of those outcomes. So for those who didn't see the game, just a quick little recap, but the Bombers started off really slowly. Richmond kicked 5 goals to our 3 in the first quarter. After quarter time, it was completely one-sided. The Bombers would pile on 15 goals to Richmond's 5 after quarter time, overturning a quarter time deficit to win the game, 118-68, 50-point winners in the end. Nate Caddy kicked 4 goals, Kyle Langford kicked 3, Darcy Parish was awesome, he had 2 goals, so did Peter Wright and Hussein Elachkar. Elachkar both kicked both his goals in the last quarter. And then you had Sam Durham, Archer May, Matt Guelphy, Xavier Dersma and Jai Caldwell all kicking singles to round out the day. But guys, let's talk about what we didn't like out of the game. So the first real negative out of this game is unfortunately something that the Bombers couldn't really control, to be honest, but the opposition's strength was really not at a high, and that's always going to be the case in these practice games. But you know, heading into the match, Richmond were young, undersized, they had all these experienced players off to the side, and then at halftime, they really swung some magnets around, took off even more experienced. In the second half, I couldn't even, like, there were some players out there that I didn't even know who they were, to be honest, and that's coming from a self-proclaimed footy nerd, but you know, that midfield was completely decimated after halftime. Taranto, Nankervis and Hopper all played only one half in the midfield. The most established Richmond midfielder after halftime was Jack Ross. That kind of tells you all you need to know. They barely had a defense to contend with all day. Ben Miller was back there, but, you know, guys like Vlosten and everyone were out of the side. You know, what this does is it, of course, makes it hard for us to really judge the performance, especially after halftime, because half the players we were playing were, you know, 18, 19, 21-year-olds, so really aren't going to be playing round one for Richmond anyway. But it also makes it really hard for our younger players to get that necessary exposure that you need in your careers. So guys like, you know, Richmond's midfielders, Sam Cumming, Tyler Sonsi, McAuliffe, Mansell, they were getting experience against Darcy Parish, Jai Caldwell, really good midfielders in the AFL, Sam Durham as well. Dyson Sharp, after halftime, when he started featuring in centre bounces, he was going up against these same guys. He was going up against Tyler Sonsi, Kane McAuliffe. Like, there was no one established in that Richmond midfield that Dyson Sharp and other younger midfielders could contend with. And that is, like, it's obviously going to help us win the game. But these games, when results don't matter, you want Dyson Sharp to be going up against guys like Tim Taranto, going up against guys like Jacob Hopper. They're not really the best midfielders in the competition, but they're a lot better than, you know, who Dyson Sharp was actually going up against in the end. So it was kind of annoying to see that. Like, our senior players, some of our best players were often matched up on 19 or 20-year-olds. Their forward line was obviously quite young. There was no Tom Lynch, so it was mostly Harry Armstrong and Jonty Fall, and that was who Ben Mackay was dealing with a lot of the time. Like, we were obviously a very young team heading into it, and a big positive that I'll talk about is our youth and how it performed, but unfortunately, the youth was going up against youth a lot of the time. It wasn't really a game where you had these baptisms of fire that you like to have this early in the preseason, so that's one of the big talking, or not talking points, but one of the things I didn't like about this game was the fact that our opposition, there was just no strength there. And that's going to change next week against St Kilda. Hopefully we see some of their more senior players out on the park. But in this game, it really was Essendon's B team going up against Richmond's C team. Now, another thing I didn't like, which is, again, it's part and parcel with these preseason games, you're always going to see skill issues, but I thought the unforced errors in particular were quite frustrating at times, especially early in the game. I thought, realistically, both teams were sloppy by foot, and every team is going to be sloppy by foot this time of the year, but one thing I really hate is just the lack of caution, and even at times, I guess, intent, especially from senior players. So, I think at times the way we tried to play, or I mean, most of the game, the whole game, the way we tried to play was fantastic, and I'll talk about that later in the video, but in that first quarter, and in other moments, but especially in that first quarter of this game, we just forced ourselves into errors way too much. And I'm not bothered by mistakes. I don't mind skill issues this early into the season, but when it's players disregarding footy fundamentals, leaning back on the footy, lazily throwing it on the boot in dangerous zones, that is when you can really disrupt a team, I guess structure. Unforced errors and turnovers, those are things you can't coach. It doesn't matter how effective your system and structure is, you cannot prepare for missed kicks in dangerous areas, not just missed kicks, because missed kicks happen all the time, but the leaning back on the footy, lazily throwing on the boot, the unforced errors, the disregarding of footy fundamentals, that is what I hate, and we saw that a little bit to start this game in the first quarter especially, and also from senior players, so that's something I didn't like. Probably the thing I hated about this game the most as an Essendon fan were the red time goals, and I'm not seeing this talked about much at all, because obviously positive performance, it's hard to be negative, when you've won by 50 points, but this is something that's been part of our team for so long. Like, I don't know how this has embedded itself in our team culture, but we just seem to never be able to defend the footy in our D50 late in quarters. I don't know what it is. I've never been able to understand what it is. And the annoying thing is the team have been outspoken about trying to fix this. Like, we've spoken about the most important 6 or 7 minutes in a quarter and being at our fittest and most alert for those periods, but still we're conceding red time goals. So Richmond kicked 10 goals yesterday. 4 of those goals came in the last 5 minutes of a quarter. And that's also, by the way, with no time on. So the clock is running from the 25 to 30 minute period. We conceded 4 goals in that period for the game, which is just simply not good enough. Like, even when we're dominating the game, I think we only conceded 1 of these goals in the first quarter, but we were absolutely dominating the game after quarter time. 3 of the 5 goals we conceded were in the last 5 minutes of a quarter. It's a cardinal sin, and it's something that the Bombers just haven't been able to fix. I'm sure if I'm a Brisbane fan talking about this, I'm not bothered as much because it's pre-season, legs are tired, players are running out of steam a bit easier, but the fact it's Essendon, this is an issue we've had for so long, it's an issue we're trying to fix, and clearly we're not able to fix it. That is a big problem. So I know it's not being talked about enough because of the positivity around this game, but red time goals are still a major feature in our game. I mean, I'd say we need to see it fixed, but I say that after every game. So red time goals, that's something I really hated out of this game. If the first quarter taught me anything, it's that we're going to have issues defending momentum this year. I think we're clearly going to struggle if we're not the better team out on the park, and clearly in that first quarter we weren't the better team, and Richmond didn't put us to the sword, but showed us that. I think we clearly played the way that we should be playing. I didn't think much changed after quarter time with our intent with ball movement, but when you're missing kicks where we're missing them, you're being a bit more dangerous and direct with the footy, it can create holes out the back and gaps in defense. And I thought our defense was always under the pump a bit in that first quarter with, some of the areas that we were losing the footy in, but unfortunately I never really felt like there was any stability back there either. Like there are teams, obviously things went right in this game so much, so it didn't matter as much, but against St Kilda next week and against teams like Geelong and Brisbane, I think we'll be talking about this more because, Mackay was awesome. Reid worked his way into the game. I thought the defenders individually were good overall, but that first quarter, those senior players looked tentative. When the ball was coming down there, it was a bit, they were jittery at times. Like there were junior Richmond forwards out marking our defenders at times. And like they hit the scoreboard so much. There were 8 scoring shots from that Richmond team in the first quarter. Again, I thought the intent from both teams was similar. I thought the aggression was similar. But if we're conceding that much against a C-grade Richmond team in one quarter, it's going to be even worse when we play real opposition with stakes on the line, with real players against us. Like I thought when momentum wasn't with Essendon in this game, we really struggled. And that is going to be, I think that's going to be a factor throughout the season. I think we're going to play good footy a lot of the time. We showed that we have the capabilities to play good, exciting, attractive footy. But when we're not playing attractive footy, when things aren't, working, when plays are breaking down, when kicks are being missed, when chemistry isn't quite there for whatever reason, we're clearly going to be a team that struggles defensively. So that's one thing to note. As good as the last 3 quarters were, that first quarter was messy, and it wasn't just the ball use that was messy, it was the fact that the ball use was breaking down and then resulting in scores the other way. And of course, it wouldn't be an Essendon video without talking about some injuries. So yeah, there were a few to talk about, most of them probably nothing, but there's one obviously quite big one that we know. So starting with the nothing ones, hopefully, fingers crossed, Sam Durham was tripped up on the wing when going for a run. He looked really proppy getting back to his feet, did play out the half, but came off the ground after half time, whether that is by design for rested minutes because other players did the same, or whether it is, because he pulled up a bit sore and they wanted to be precautionary. There don't seem to be many worries about this, but I just thought I'd include it in the video, especially after he's signed a historic long-term contract till 2032. So congratulations, Sam Durham. Matt Guelphy also pulled up pretty sore from a contest quite late in the game, seems to be fine. The main injury, of course, is Jordan Ridley. So this wasn't part of the match sim. He was left out of the match sim in preparation for next week's game against St Kilda after recovering from that hamstring injury that's really plagued him, all this pre-season. But unfortunately, as he's getting back, a week before, proper match sim minutes, he's gone to scans for a calf complaint. We don't know the severity of this injury yet. We don't know what the time frame is. I'll have more details for you when that comes out. But the fact that this is happening so close to the preseason, I think we're pretty much just... We can rule out Jordan Ridley for round 1. I was saying this a few weeks ago anyway, that I thought he was doubtful for round 1, but yeah, it's a horrible injury. I don't know where this puts Jordan Ridley. It's one of those setbacks where, it might be a minor one, it might be a month or so, but it's just building up. It's another injury, another soft tissue injury for a player who's just been plagued with them for so long now. Yeah, really unfortunate. 2026 is already looking like a negative one for Jordan Ridley. So what I didn't like from this game are the injuries that I guess didn't come from the game itself, but from the day. And now onto the positives. What did I like out of this game? Clearly the midfield was just dominant. It was an absolute no contest. This wasn't my favorite aspect of the game, by the way. I've got others that I'll talk about in a bit, but we clearly won the game out of the midfield. And it really, after halftime, yes, they took those senior players out, but that isn't when the dominance started. That second quarter, when Taranto and Hopper and Nankervis were still out on the field playing against our main midfield as well, we were absolutely destroying them. It was an absolute no contest. We were winning pretty much every centre clearance. We kicked 4 goals in the first 7 minutes, 7 goals for the quarter, and pretty much all of it came down to a one-sided midfield battle. Blackiston was all over Nankervis. Parrish, Caldwell and Durham were bullying their midfield. And this was also when Roberts was swung into the guts as well for the first time. And I thought, even though he was actually a bit wasteful by foot, I thought he provided really good defensive stability. So even when he didn't have the ball, he was doing, quite a bit for our midfield without it. So when they got a clearance, they were always under heat. Roberts was always providing heat, which I really liked. Again, this isn't my favorite takeaway from the game or anything, but the game starts in the midfield with the centre bounce. And if you're dominating that area, you're getting possession, and it has a snowball effect because it puts the back line under the pump. With 666 rules, you can't throw numbers back to prepare, so we had space and time going forward to hit targets. I thought we killed them in the guts, which also hurt their forward line because they weren't getting opportunities up there. They were getting cold up there in the 31-degree heat. Parrish and Caldwell, it's a raffle for best on ground. I thought they were awesome. Durham would have been in the conversation if he didn't come off at halftime. It was just such a one-sided midfield battle. We really did kill them. After halftime, yes, when they didn't have numbers, but also when they had those senior players on the park, our midfield was the better of the two. I really liked that we saw a complete first quarter turnaround. That first quarter was just shocking. It was woeful. The ball skills were really not there at all. And the fact that we were, even competitive in that quarter was mainly due to probably quality on field. We did have the better team out there. But the second quarter was a complete turnaround. Like not even just in the midfield with that dominance and getting hands on the footy, but just finding options inside 50. So in the first quarter, it took 21 minutes for us to get a mark inside 50. That was Sam Durham kicking it to Archer May on the edge of the 50. That was our first mark inside 50 for the game. By that stage, Richmond already had 5 or 6. So that's 5 or 6 shots on goal, without pressure, lining up for goal for 30 seconds that they had before we had one In the second quarter, we had 7 goals, 6 of them were from set shots. So that is a complete contrast to the first term where we couldn't hit a target. We had options to hit targets but couldn't. It really was just, I don't know what it was. It wasn't a change of game style or plan. Things just clicked, everything started falling into place. That cohesion from defense to midfield was there, then midfield to forward line. We were hitting targets, finding the right options and making the right decisions. I think it's really good because it's not just showing that a team can regain momentum after failing to get it in the first hand, but it's also showing what our footy is going to look like, when it's not working well in that first quarter, but when it's working well in that second quarter as well, when we kicked 46 points to their 6. So it was a really good contrast between what our game style, the same game style, looks like at its best and worst, and that is a good thing to see this early into the season. Let's talk a bit more about that exciting footy, because my favourite takeaway from this game was the ball movement. Now, I talked about this in my things to expect in the preview video, but we've been really heavily training fast, direct, forward-moving ball movement this preseason, and that was really evident yesterday. Like, even the first quarter I spoke about, when we were trying to move the footy, we were fluffing kicks. There was clearly intent and direction, just a lack of execution. We were moving the footy forward pretty much every time we had the footy in every quarter, and when we weren't, it was actually to create gaps and space in the zones to attack the corridor. That's what I really loved to see. We were going forward so much, pretty much the entire game, and when we went backwards or sideways, it was with meaning and with a purpose to eventually go forward even quicker. So I thought guys like Zach Johnson and Kondigiannis and Farrow were crucial to this, linking up, handball receive, kicking the footy through the corridor, and it shows how exciting and effective you can be if you've got good ball users in your team. Now some of the change through the middle of the ground were just awesome stuff that I haven't seen Essendon do in many years. In fact, again, it's probably the best I've seen us move the footy throughout a game in so long, or I guess with the best intention to move the footy through the middle of the ground or in a game. Like, I know it's just a practice game, but at least we can look forward and look at our game style and understand what we're trying to do. Like whether that holds up against better opposition, Geelong, Brisbane, time will obviously tell, and to be honest, it probably won't. We're a very young team with very young players, tasked with these responsibilities. But the good news is we are clearly a team trying to play footy the right way. And I can't remember the last time I looked at an Essendon team and said, our ball movement is heading in the right direction. We're trying to do the right thing with our ball movement. But in this practice game, yes, it's a practice game. At least the signs are there. So I'm excited. That's the main reason I'm excited, because even at our worst, we are still trying to play footy the right way. Something else that was really evident was how well we defended transition. So obviously that first quarter was not ideal, but neither team was playing great footy. It was a really open game, ping-ponging back and forth between the arcs. But after quarter time, they kicked 5 goals for the game. We kicked 15. It wasn't just, us dominating the game how we wanted it to be played. The way we were playing is a way that teams can benefit to score against you. Like, you can clearly counterattack teams that play like we do in this game, but Richmond couldn't. They failed to benefit from an open game. We weren't keeping it closed and closeted. In fact, when it was closed up, it was mainly through Richmond's design in that third quarter, but they were just failing to move the footy. Like, we were free-flowing and exciting at times. They were most of the time stuck in the mud and not able to get past their defensive half, and when they did, it was mostly being kicked straight to Ben Mackay. I thought we did really well with our key defenders plugging holes. Ben Mackay especially was fantastic, but also the fact that they couldn't really transition or move the footy with speed past our forward 50. There was good pressure in there as well. I thought, we'll see how this looks against better opposition, of course. I doubt that this is going to hold up when we play Geelong or Brisbane, but the fact that we, conceded 5 goals after quarter time in a game as open as this one was, that's good. And before we get onto the individuals and the players, we got to talk about cohesion, because this is something that, last year we were slaughtered by injury. There was no connection, no chemistry on the field late in the year. There were first-year players playing alongside first-year players, mid-season draftees making up a forward line pretty much. It was a horrific year for injury, and there was no cohesion as a result of that. This time round, this game, we've finally seen cohesion for the first time in many months. You're seeing Darcy Parish finally play midfield minutes alongside Caldwell and Durham. You're seeing that defence, those younger players link up alongside each other and grow together. together. All those second-year players that played games alongside each other, you're finally seeing the benefits of that. You know, they're reaping the rewards of those games that they played together. We finally, for the first time in many, many months, saw a team with connection and chemistry and cohesion. All right, if we're talking about individuals, we have to talk about some of the senior players and the returning stars of the team. Last year, again, it was a shocker for injury. You had so many senior players, veterans of the club, just off to the side, not able to play. Darcy Parish played 3 games last year. He was fantastic in this game. He's been having an awesome preseason, Darcy Parish. He was fantastic in this game. 20 plus disposals, 2 really classy goals, plenty of clearances, arguably 3 Brownlow votes if you're giving out Brownlow votes in practice games. Ben Mackay as well missed half the year last year, but he was rock solid in defence, intercepting everything. I would say he had over 5 intercept marks and close to 10 intercepts for the game. Zach Reed also missed half of last year, and he was a good partner for Mackay for most of the game as well. Kyle Langford had 2 or 3 setbacks, soft tissue setbacks last year. He was one of our better players today. 3 goals, 5 tackles. The senior players were just levels above out there for the first time in a long time. Like, we're going to talk about the youth in a second. That's the reason why I'm most excited, but it is exciting to see guys like Darcy Parish and Langford and Mackay, you know, even guys like Caldwell and Wright who missed games last year. Like, the fact that they're getting games under the belt in the practice games, in the preseason, and looking as good as they are, that is fantastic. You know, we desperately need these guys to stay fit. From the senior players to the most recent on the list, the 2025 draft crop, really, all of them showed signs, and that is fantastic because there were quite a few playing. We had 4 of the 5 playing. Obviously, Sullivan Roby is off to the side with injury, but I mean, Jacob Farrow, I'm almost locking him into round 1. I think he was the most impressive of the lot. He was moving so well around the ground, playing defense and wing. His timing, his running, the way he glides around the ground, and of course, that left foot is just absolutely beautiful. This guy's going to play a lot of footy for the club. I think he plays round 1, and I think he showed that he's ready to play round 1 in this game. Hussein Elachkar might also play round 1, to be honest. He was the most damaging of our small forwards. Obviously, Kako's not there, but the fact that, you know, he was buzzing around all day, involving himself in ground level footy, and he deserved a goal. In the end, he got 2 late in the game, and he was awesome for us. Max Kondagianis, my boy down back, he was awesome in that first half. He was one of the guys really tasked with moving the footy forward, and in that second quarter and the first quarter as well, just looked so good by foot. I think him and Zach Johnson, to be honest, were the only players hitting targets in that first quarter, but he did play wing footy as well, which I've been calling out for a bit, Max Kondagianis. So if he can insert himself onto that wing, that's a role that he can play, and with Jordan Ridley missing, this guy could well play a bit of footy early in the season. He is another who looks ready, and that is exciting because, again, my boy. And Dyson Sharp, he was busy, probably didn't have the biggest impact of the junior players, but part of that is the role he's playing. I'm not quite sure if this guy is someone that can play off a half forward flank and move up to stoppages. I prefer him as a midfielder, and to be honest, when he had less of the ball in that second half, I actually thought he was playing more, you know, consistent and reliable midfield footy. I get that he was getting the footy a lot in the first quarter, but a lot of it was, you know, he wasn't the player that you want going inside 50, and he was often the player going inside 50. So he did quite a bit. He used his body really well in the contest and played some good midfield footy. But yeah, I think his role in the future just has to be a pure midfielder, because he showed that in this game. He is a genuinely promising midfielder for the future. Now, we can obviously be excited about the 2025 draft crop, but there is plenty more reasons to be excited about the future of this club, and it was really on display in this game. So, I mean, we really did see the future of the club before our eyes a little bit. You know, the guys that I just talked about, the draftees from last year, all showing signs, but so were the 2024 draftees. Like, as I said, Zach Johnson, I thought he was one of the best on field at halftime. He is so classy and direct by foot. He was unbelievably composed back there. You had Newen, who was kind of the opposite next to him, not much composure, but will stop at nothing to win the footy and beat his opponent. He's genuinely in the round 1 frame alongside Zach Johnson. Angus Clark was really busy in multiple roles and looked at home wherever he played. He played defence, wing, forward, and then you go to the 2023 draftees. Roberts and Caddy were 2 of our best players on the park. These guys are 21 years old. Roberts won more of the footy than anyone. Caddy kicked 4 goals. You're looking at the future of the club right there. It is in seriously good hands with these young players. All across the field, we had young players standing up and showing not just signs, but evidence that they're ready to take the next step. So we're going to be a very young team this year in 2026, but that's a major positive if the young players we have are as promising as this. Half the team out there, by the way, for this squad was picked by Matt Rosa in the draft or off-season or trades. Rosa's only been there for 2 off-season seasons officially, and half the team playing today was Matt Rosa picks. So clearly this team is reinventing itself on the run a bit, and that's going to continue to happen in the next few years with the drafts and trade periods. But the pieces in place are really, really promising. You know, especially when you look at guys like Kako and Roby, big pieces as well, off to the side. We've got more to come. These players are going to develop more in time. I thought our youth clearly looked the better of the two out there. Now, look, overall, I thought this performance was really positive. I mean, like, yes, it's a practice match. It's glorified match sim training, but it's good match sim. It's good training. You'd have to be the most pessimistic human alive to really hone in on this with a negative lens. Yes, there are things to dislike, and I went through them in this video. There are always things to dislike in these games of footy, but there are so many reasons to be positive and optimistic heading into the season and into the future for the Essendon Football Club. And I thought we saw a lot to really like about the way that this club is heading. Obviously, it's not even close to finished product. We're not even in the season yet. We can't, read into these games too much. But if we're looking at this game, isolating this game on its own, most of what we saw was really positive, and the scoreboard showed that. So yeah, I thought it was a really good hit out, a really exciting hit out, and I'm really keen to see what we do against St Kilda, to be honest, because that's going to be tougher opposition heading into round one. And then Hawthorn is going to be, that's going to be a big game of footy. But guys, cheers for watching. Let me know what you liked and disliked about this game in the comments below. Make sure you stay tuned for Monday's video that I've got coming out with Scott. That is going to be a really, really fun one. And as always, guys, go Bombers.